Gerda Lechleitner from Austria.
Sorry. Good morning, everybody. We have heard a lot of different things already, and reading the topic of one of the topics of this meeting, I have chosen a little bit provocative title, but my contribution has to be thought out of my work, and it's very personal. It's very based on observations I did during my work, and I would like to switch from the golden age of the 20th century a little bit what we are doing now, because that was also my idea, because the Phonogrammarchiv in Vienna was founded in 1899, really at the turn from with the beginning of the 20th century. And when we celebrated our 100th anniversary, it was always my idea. What could we contribute for the next 100 years? To be sure, I don't know, but I just will refer to some of my observations. I start with a quote. Ethnomusicologists have long treated sound recordings as a double-edged sword. On one hand, they have praised them for revolutionizing the field of comparative and historical musicology, and as a valuable tool in the service of preservation, transcription, pedagogy, and research recall. Some researchers have gone so far as to claim that sound recordings are in fact what make ethnomusicology possible at all. On the other hand, many ethnomusicologists have characterized sound recordings as tools of depiction or constructed fictions that researchers cannot take seriously as reliable and representative data. End of quote. Rhonda Seawold started her article from 2005 about sound recordings and ethnomusicology with these considerations. They are based on the fact that sound in general and music in particular is a fugitive impression. Sound, moreover, is open to personal perception and dependent on remembrance. Therefore, the invention of sound recording caused a turn in sciences in general and in ethnomusicology in particular. Thus, the physiologist and founder of the Phonogrammarchiv in Vienna, Sigmund Exner, not only underlined the necessity of using this new invention for research, but also emphasized its implementation as the real starting point for research focused on exotic music, on ethnomusicology. Exner was looking ahead and opted for the preservation of such recordings, as he argued that also in future the recordings would be of interest to researchers and the descendants of those recorded for different reasons. Languages and music change over time and may merge due to cultural and social factors. Sound recordings offered the possibility, on the one hand, to analyze the physical features of one distinct recording, but on the other hand, to compare them over time. Comparison, however, requires preservation, and professional preservation takes place in archives. The history of research sound archives started 118 years ago, as I said, 1899 in Vienna. A few other archives, as in Berlin or Paris, were founded around 1900, and even more after World War II up to recent times. Old and new archives exist, either as repositories or as active archives. The technical devices improved rapidly, from huge bulky machines to smart tools, from analog to digital, from restricted to nearly endless recording time, from expensive to low cost. The use of a recording device is said to be one of the characteristics of ethnomusicology. Therefore, the fast technical development changed the methods, mainly in the field research, and subsequently influenced the research topics as well as the preservation and dissemination domain. This technical revolution in the field of audiovisual media opened new storage possibilities besides audiovisual archives, for instance, internet platforms, websites, etc. As a result, the data volume has extremely increased, and we have the chance to deal with unimagined quantities of sources. The past 20-30 years, approximately since the beginning of the digital era, have seen tremendous changes in the context in which audiovisual archives function. Changes in communication, the end of colonial domination, and rapid technological changes in audiovisual recording and transmission require major changes in what is expected from archives. It is the way archives acquire, preserve, and disseminate their recordings. Such demands go along with changes in the discipline and the challenges in the digital world, the internet. With that scenario in mind, I would like to reflect a little bit on the present situation of what I call diverse ethnomusicologies. The changes in ethnomusicology show a development from analytical measuring and systematizing approaches to human-focused ones, from an illustrious researcher's perspective to generally transmitted and applied knowledge. In respect of audio documentation, these changes were only possible due to technical innovations. In the early years, researchers struggled with machines which were heavy and difficult to handle, with high price carriers like wax discs or cylinders, and with a rather limited recording time. The outcomes were sound recordings using the exploratory method. The researcher asked for distinct songs or music pieces. The recording item had to be practiced so that it didn't last longer than 1 or 2 minutes. But at the same time, it should precisely feature what the researcher wanted to know. Finally, the performer was asked to keep very close to the horn. That practice could be eased with the beginning of the electric era and the use of microphones, which allowed for a more natural acting in course of a recording. And as we all know today, recordings can be made nearly unnoticed in a documentary way. These technical developments cleared the way for changes in the discipline. The functionality of music, its role and meaning in society came to the fore. The goals of ethnomusicological societies like the SEM, ICTM or ESEM mirror these shifts when looking at their conference topics, publications and names of their sections and interests or study groups. Their names reveal the emphasis of the discipline today. I attempted a classification according to regions, genres and general themes. In that respect, SEM shows a quite balanced distribution of these 3 interests, but ICTM reveals a focus on certain regions. One could ask why. It seems that special interests manifested themselves in regions, large ones like Africa, a continent, or South Asia, and smaller ones, e.g. parts of Europe like Southeast Europe, Mediterranean or Slavic-speaking regions. Although we undergo permanent movements resulting in multi, inter, and transcultural acting, the research on distinct groups or communities seems to be focused on, probably as the first step in searching for a more general discussion and results later on. In the course of time, a shift from searching for specific, self-contained, often called authentic, and politically determined national forms to recognizing lively, changing, mutual interest and thus new forms can be observed. I would like to introduce some new projects and including that with methods. first criticized rather moodily, but now with a strong voice, the colonial attitude, including hierarchical thinking, is a topic disputed in ethnomusicological discourse. Terms like post-colonialism, decolonialization, or the global South and North have triggered discussions which seemingly allowed for a more transparent approach and stand for a social balance in global knowledge production and dissemination. But still, indigenous, oppressed, colonized, or remote communities produce the material that researchers from dominant groups use for their academic work and recognition. Academics only give back what they consider the results of a finished product, for instance a CD. Within academic hierarchies, those in power own knowledge, while those below only provide the input. To redress such findings, namely the unequal relationship between the researcher and the research subject, a collaborative research practice has started. Researchers are confronted with the challenges of moving from a neutral to an activist stance, referring to a position that is neither insider nor outsider. To realize such approaches, cooperative, participatory and collaborative acting is necessary. By rethinking inherent hierarchies, horizontal and equal relations could be reached. The owning of knowledge switches to providing it. In this context, I would like to mention the project Researching the Expressive Heritage of Ilhavo in Portugal, where the local municipality has initiated a partnership with the Universidade de Aveiro to contribute to the preservation and valorization of memory and local identity, and to increase the knowledge about cultural manifestations. The expected results, compiled jointly by the community and the academics, will include the organization of a database comprising information on ethnographic literature associated with local expressive culture, the access to the whole material collected during this project on the website, in providing an equal use that this website then enables to store, correlate, comment, promote, and preserve the heritage of the city and its collective memory. And finally, a book with the CD should be published and the multimedia exhibition will be organized. This project clearly shows the participatory and collaborative approach together with the use of various technical, namely digital facilities. New technical possibilities, mainly in the digital field, now form the basis of many new projects. And it is the digital world which opens completely new perspectives by dealing with quantities of data which would never have been imagined. The respective discipline is called digital humanities and is pushed by research politics. The executed topics range from genres to ensembles to ethnic music and also to general topics. Therese Smith examines some issues stemming from digital humanities techniques to create archival platforms. She mentions that attention has not yet been coherently directed to the impact of mass media dissemination. Such platforms boost ethnomusicologists' abilities to conduct fieldwork on a remote level, like former armchair ethnomusicologists. As an example, she introduces an Irish song collection that previously has been difficult to access, but is now showcased on a digital platform. In fact, on this platform, live recordings of songs are archived, but without the contextual details contained in other documents that relate to the recordings. Thus, she points to a gap between quantity and quality. On the other hand, the recordings are widely accessible for the first time, and on the one hand, they are accessible for the first time, but on the other hand, important information is not yet available in the same way. The next one, as Aurélie Helmlinger states, changes in the practice of ethnomusicology offered by the field of digital humanities can touch at least 3 aspects of our discipline. First, open access to data and metadata. Second, the possibility of broadening the corpora by merging items of various archives. And thirdly, the development of brand new research tools. She has created the website Panipedia as collaborative database and research tool to allow large-scale studies about the use of pen styles to test cognitive hypotheses on the dispersion of the intervals and to understand the popularity of certain styles or to highlight geographically scattered subcultures over time. On her website, 149 bands playing 171 pens of 26 types and 455 styles can be found. Helmlinger considers technological possibilities as the starting point for a heuristic process. This process, in her mind, can facilitate a naturalistic and cognitive approach, trying to understand culture rather than taking culture as an explanation. The next one, Sarah Ross argues that the current practice of simply studying, collecting and exhibiting materials on Jewish life and culture in Europe before the Holocaust is no longer enough. What is relevant today is no longer a confrontation and depiction of what Jewish life once was, but a contemporary reflection on local Jewish existence, religion and culture, and thus a dynamic interaction with Jewish communities on the spot. Within this context, the recourse to research tools and resources of digital humanities plays a significant role. Thus, an ethnomusicological online database on Jewish liturgical music, a central tool, was created, and is part of her research project on cultural sustainability as an applied strategy in Jewish music studies. A planned project based on holdings of various archives named Our Sonic Lives, a sound map of European nostalgia, will focus on nostalgia by using keywords and contextualization of the extracted linguistic content, as well as acoustic markers identified by pattern recognition and machine learning. This is an attempt to close the semantic gap between machine-readable data and higher-level concepts such as nostalgia. Forms of online presentations will be developed, allowing users to visualize soundscapes in time and space, and multimodal techniques will be explored to enhance research activities. And as a last example, another project, Telling Sounds, focuses, in the double sense of the words, on the narrated in-sound and on-sound recordings as such. Audiovisual documents and commercial recordings will be united on the data platform as sources for histories of and about music, and will be accessible for interdisciplinary as well as scholarly artistic debates. The planned research cluster makes these collections usable in respect of Austrian music histories and will be tested in exemplary case studies. And shortly, what all these projects have in common is the integration and use of already existing sound archives when creating new ones, digital repositories, platforms, etc., which then comprise much more data, focused on the respective theme. Sound recordings, mostly preserved in archives, seem to be the key features for new ethnomusicological approaches using digital tools. Pushed for digitization, archival holdings are the indispensable pools for digital humanities, allowing new and expanded approaches Open access enables the shift from hierarchical to horizontal approaches. But big data call for systematization, and archives, whether national, regional or local, academic or thematic and specialized, mirror such classification. Overlooking some of the new projects, they are often focused on region-bound topics. Is it the vision of ethnomusicology to promote quantity to achieve new and encompassing estimations? Does this approach really stand for the global equal vision? Or does ethnomusicology in the 21st century, in such cases, again, concentrate on national, regional focus? Coming back to Siewald's statement mentioned at the beginning, I have observed that for quite a long time, sound collections were indeed noticed, but not used. For instance, while ethnomusicologists generally were in favor of their own field recordings and stored them on their shelves, they didn't take very much notice of the work already done by the others. But this has apparently changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gerda. And questions, please. We have enough time.
Thank you very much, Gerda. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, you have convincingly shown how important technological progress is to any science, and without sound recordings, read this paper would have been very short. However, this phenomenon were discussed in the pre-phonograph area as well. Anyway, I don't think that sound recordings made possible ethnomusicology, because for me the crucial point is intellectual interest, the academic interest, to comparing music cultures, to a relativistic approach to musical cultures, and to music anthropology. And this discourse started in the late 18th century. François-Joseph Fétis couldn't work with the phonograph. Later, Wilhelm Tappert, the pioneers of comparative musicologies in the 19th century, they had no phonographs, but the basic questions were already there. So we have to relativize maybe the technical devices at some points. The second, you spoke about the shift to human-focused and functional approaches as new trends. But I think these are basic trends in folk music research of the last third of the 19th century. We have what I call the performer-centered research, or the ethnomusicology of the individual is anything but the new trend, and functionally based research as well, at least in European folk music research. So maybe we have to be a bit more careful about the allegedly new trends. Thank you.
May I answer a little bit what I meant with all my thoughts? You are completely in line. I know that people for a long time were thinking about different cultures, and they were traveling around as soon as it was possible for them. But what the sound recordings offered was something which others could evaluate what others said about the kind of music. Because you can't offend that if you are trained. We have heard a lot about the psychological input we have. We are grown up in a distinct culture. We can't throw away everything we have learned, we have taken with us. We can try to be as open as possible, but a sound recording gives you another tool in your hands to discuss such problems. And that goes directly to the next question about the human-focused thing. Just imagine, as we have heard from Joseph Giordania in the very beginning, it was the comparison. No word about for which occasion songs were sung. in the real comparative studies, don't say no. In folk music research, maybe there has been a lot of those things, but not in the Hornbostel era, not in the very first era of comparative ethnomusicology research. I think there is a shift after the Second World War, when we changed our focus. What does music mean and what are we interested in music? It shouldn't deny that we still make comparisons of styles, of instruments, or whatever. But with the sense, what does it mean for those who make this music and for those who perceive the music? It's a double way. It's not only that we observe what they are doing. It's also, well, yesterday evening it was very, very interesting for me sitting in the back and to observing the audience during the concert. That is extremely interesting and has the same fun factor, if you like, as listening to the rehearsal. So it's really very, very open, I think. I don't stress on that this is only the technical device, but just think around our world. How is it possible that we all gather here only without technical improvement? We are living in the technical world. We can't say it is not. We can try to diminish it as much as possible, but anyway, the technical turn has changed a lot of things.
May I give a very short?
Maybe.
No, but otherwise we can discuss it.
There's a difference.
There's another question.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Please.
Okay, we have. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Don Lundberg, Sweden. I didn't say that last time. I was thinking a little bit about the responsibility questions, because this is what is preserved and what is not is always the question for archives, and especially now when we have these possibilities to present things and of course we are categorizing, we are standardizing, we're homogenizing something in English, music for more people and with more power. Can you say something about responsibilities?
That's a very crucial question, and we are aware of that. I think that old-fashioned archives are very aware of this responsibility, but we have new tools now. As these digital platforms, for instance, and I'm asking myself, who is responsible for that? And what are we dealing with? And we have a lot of young colleagues researching in the internet. They don't go to countries anywhere to listen to a music in context. They listen to the items on the internet, which is very useful because you can follow with a lot of thoughts afterwards. Why are exactly these items in the internet and not the other, if we know it? If we don't have an idea, we can't check it. Is it really a culture or not? But responsibility is very, very important, but I think the responsibility goes beyond only that what we preserve, because we can't preserve everything. It really has to go in that direction. For whom do we preserve and for what purpose? And that was my idea, that these new tools even allow for a more horizontal thinking, because we really were the doers and the other were the givers for a long time, and we were thinking in that. Archives are told to be open, but just tell me, how could people come from Papua New Guinea or from South America to Vienna, where we have the oldest items of their culture? That has changed now, and we have to deal with these possibilities. That was my idea, and that I suppose also will change our dealing with our subject. Not also in folk music research, which is probably a little bit closer, but ethnomusicology deals with music all around the world in all social scales. So it's really a wonderful discipline. We can do such a lot of different things. Well, it's just my observation now, and it was a small glimpse of what I wanted to say. Maybe what could be done or what will come in the 21st century.
Thank
Nothing
you.
more.
Thank you. We haven't any time for other questions. Thank you very much.